The legacy of Emperor Menelik II, the roots of Ethiopian civilization. Ethiopia, a land of ancient civilizations, of kings and emperors, of resilience and divine legacies. Long before the rise of modern empires, Ethiopia stood as a beacon of power, wisdom, and unbroken sovereignty. To understand the greatness of Emperor Menelik II, we must first journey back through the sands of time to the origins of Ethiopian civilization. The Kingdom of Dimt and the Sabaean influence. Over 2,800 years ago, the Kingdom of Dimt flourished in what is now northern Ethiopia and Eritrea. This was an age of great innovation, where the Ethiopian highlands became a bridge between Africa and the Middle East. The influence of the Sabaeans, traders from the legendary Kingdom of Sheba, brought with them new technologies, written scripts, and architectural wonders. The ruins of Yeha, with its towering temple built in the 7th century BCE, still whisper tales of this golden era. The Aksumite Empire, the rise of African power. Then came Aksum, the mighty empire that dominated East Africa and the Red Sea trade routes. From 100 AD to 940 AD, the Aksumite kings controlled a vast territory, trading gold, ivory, and frankincense with Rome, Persia, and India. The great stelae of Aksum, some standing over 24 meters tall, stand as silent sentinels of Ethiopia's ancient grandeur. It was here that King Ezana, in the 4th century, embraced Christianity, making Ethiopia one of the earliest Christian nations in the world, long before most of Europe. The Solomonic dynasty, the bloodline of kings. But what truly sets Ethiopia apart is its unbroken royal lineage. The Kebra Nagast, the sacred book of Ethiopian history, tells the story of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. Their son, Menelik I, would become Ethiopia's first emperor, bringing the Ark of the Covenant from Jerusalem to Aksum, where it is said to remain to this day. From Menelik I to Menelik II, the Solomonic dynasty ruled Ethiopia for thousands of years, preserving its independence against foreign invaders. The Zagwe dynasty and the rock-hewn churches of Lalibela. Then, during the 12th century, the Zagwe dynasty arose, leaving behind one of Ethiopia's greatest wonders, the rock-hewn churches of Lalibela. Carved entirely out of solid rock, these 11 churches, connected by tunnels and passageways, were said to be built with the help of angels. Ethiopia became a spiritual stronghold, preserving its unique Christian heritage amid a sea of external pressures. Ethiopia's resistance and the coming of Menelik II. For centuries, Ethiopia remained a land unconquered, resisting external forces, from Arab invasions to European colonial ambitions. But by the late 19th century, a new threat loomed: the scramble for Africa. European powers, armed with modern weapons and vast armies, sought to carve up the continent. It was in this moment of crisis that a leader emerged, a leader destined to preserve Ethiopia's independence. A course of history. His name was Menelik II, the rise of Emperor Menelik II. Join us as we uncover the life, leadership, and unbreakable spirit of Emperor Menelik II, the man who defied European colonial rule and led Ethiopia to its greatest victory. Born in 1844 as Salamariam, Menelik was destined for greatness. He was the son of King Haile Melekot of Shoa, a powerful kingdom in central Ethiopia. But his path to the throne would not be an easy one. 1855, the ambitious Emperor Tewodros II, a man determined to unify Ethiopia, took young Menelik captive and brought him to his fortress in Magdala. For 10 years, Menelik lived in captivity, observing the ways of Tewodros, learning from his strengths and weaknesses. He studied the art of war, diplomacy, and governance. And when the moment came, he made a daring escape. Menelik's return. Shoa, the making of a king. Upon his return, Menelik was no longer a boy. He was a warrior, a leader. He quickly reclaimed the throne of Shoa and set his sights on a greater vision to unify all of Ethiopia. Over the next 2 decades, Menelik built his army, expanded his influence, and positioned himself as the rightful successor to the Ethiopian Empire. The path to the throne, the fall of Emperor Johannes IV. But Ethiopia was still divided. The north was ruled by Emperor Johannes IV, a strong leader who defended Ethiopia against Egyptian and modest invasions. Though Menelik and Johannes were rivals, they both knew that Ethiopia's greatest enemy was not within it, was beyond its borders. In 1889, Emperor Johannes III fell in battle against Sudanese Mahdists. With his passing, the path to the Ethiopian throne was clear. Menelik II was crowned Emperor of Ethiopia. But his greatest challenge was yet to come. The colonial threat, Italy's ambition. While Ethiopia was uniting, Europe was dividing Africa. Italy, having already seized Eritrea and parts of Somalia, now set its sights on the last independent African kingdom, Ethiopia. Italy sought to deceive Ethiopia. The Treaty of Wuchale, signed in 1889, contained a critical mistranslation. In the Italian version, Ethiopia was forced to become a protectorate of Italy, while the Amharic version stated Ethiopia could choose to work with Italy as an ally. Menelik saw through the deception. He rejected Italy's demands and prepared for war, preparing for the Battle of Adwa. This was a war like no other. Menelik II knew that to defeat Italy, Ethiopia had to unite. He called upon thousands of warriors from every region, Oromo cavalry, Amhara riflemen, Tigrayan swordsmen, all standing together under one flag. Ethiopia's strength was not just in numbers, but in its unbreakable spirit. But Menelik did not stand alone. Beside him was Empress Taytu, a fearless leader in her own right. She led troops into battle, devised military strategies, and ensured that Ethiopia's warriors were well fed and prepared. The world watched as Ethiopia stood against a European superpower, and soon the greatest battle in African history would begin. The Battle of Adwa. The Battle of Adwa, Ethiopia's greatest victory. The year is 1896. The Italian colonial army marches toward the highlands of Ethiopia, believing victory is inevitable. Their goal, to conquer the last free nation in Africa. But Ethiopia was ready. Emperor Menelik II had united an army of over 100,000 warriors, a force unlike any seen before. From every corner of the empire, Ethiopians had answered the call, ready to defend their land, their freedom, and their history. The strategy of Menelik. Menelik II was not just a warrior, he was a master strategist. He knew the Italian forces were well equipped with modern rifles, cannons, and European tactics. But he also knew the land. He planned to use the mountains, the valleys, and the terrain itself to trap and overwhelm the invading army. By controlling the high ground, cutting off supply lines, and forcing the Italians into confusion, Ethiopia would strike with the full force of its warriors. The Italian underestimation. The Italians believed their European weaponry and military discipline would crush the Ethiopian forces. They had 17,000 well-trained soldiers, hundreds of artillery pieces, and the latest in European firearms. They thought Ethiopia would fall, like so many African nations before it. But they made a fatal mistake. They underestimated the spirit, the unity, and the sheer determination of the Ethiopian people. The battle begins, March 1st, 1896. As dawn broke on March 1st, 1896, the Italian forces marched forward, expecting an easy victory. But Menelik's army was waiting. From the hills, Ethiopian riflemen opened fire, sending the Italian columns into chaos. Then, from the ridges and valleys, the full force of Ethiopia's warriors descended upon them. The turning point, Ethiopian bravery. Menelik II rode into battle himself, leading his warriors from the front lines. His army was not just soldiers, it was a nation fighting for survival. Ethiopian cavalry smashed through Italian ranks. Warriors wielding spears, swords, and shields engaged in brutal hand-to-hand combat, and entire regiments of Italian soldiers were forced into retreat. The defeat of the Italians. By midday, the Italian army was broken. Their ranks had collapsed, their generals were in disarray, and thousands of soldiers lay dead, wounded, or captured. The mighty colonial empire of Italy had been defeated by an African nation that refused to bow. The aftermath, a message to the world. The Battle of Adwa was not just a military victory, it was a message to the world. Ethiopia had defied the European colonial machine, proving that Africa was not to be conquered without resistance. The victory sent shockwaves across Europe, inspiring anti-colonial movements across the continent and beyond. The Treaty of Addis Ababa, Ethiopian sovereignty preserved. Months later, Italy was forced to sign the Treaty of Addis Ababa, officially recognizing Ethiopia as a sovereign, independent nation. The dream of colonial domination over Ethiopia had been shattered. Menelik II had ensured that his nation would remain free.